Hi, this is Manmad. Welcome back to my channel. Now our topic is CODEX HACCP principles. What are the changes CODEX had made in HACCP principles in 2020? Before going in details, let us have discussion about what is CODEX. CODEX committee was developed in the year 1962. It's a subsidiary of World Health Organization and Food and Agriculture Organization, United Nations. Joint venture between FAO and WHO formulate internationally accepted food safety standards to produce safe food for human consumption and to encourage and to ensure fair trade practices. What is Codex Alimentarius? Codex Alimentarius is a group of international food safety standards adopted by Codex Alimentarius Commission. What is Codex Alimentarius? Codex Alimentarius is a Latin word. Codex Alimentarius means a food law or legal code of food. Now let us have a look. What are the changes they made? In recent revision, Codex HACCP as revised HACCP principles number, HACCP principle 1, HACCP principle 3, HACCP principle 5 and HACCP principle 6. The principles, HACCP principles, rest of the principles same, but whereas HACCP principle 1, 3, 5, 6, just they rephrased the sentence, modified the sentence. Let us have a look what they modified the principles. Now principle number 1, conduct the recent edition, conduct hazard analysis and identify control measures, whereas the old version is conduct hazard analysis. Now principle number 2 remains same, determine the CCP, but whereas principle number 3 establish validated critical limits. The old version is establish critical limits. This time during the recent revision, Codex Commission has emphasized on validation system. Critical limits validation, they have focused more on critical limit validation and HACCP plan validation. Before going to establish verification procedures, the system is effectively working as it is intended. So they've emphasized, they have focused more on validation protocols. So that's why they modified as a principle 3, establish validated critical limits. Then as a principle 4 remains same, monitoring of CCPs. As a principle 5 again, so they modified, they rephrased the sentence. The old sentence is, in old version, establish critical limits whenever critical control points not controlled. But in the recent revision, they have rephrased the sentence, establish critical limits whenever a deviation occurs from a critical limit at a CCP. So just they rephrased the sentence. And the sixth one is, it's important one. The old Codex HACCP is establish verification procedures, confirms HACCP works effectively. This is the 2003 edition. Whereas in the recent edition, before establish the verification procedures, we have to validate the HACCP plan. So validate HACCP plan and then establish verification procedures for HACCP system working as intended. Then the last one is principle 7. It remains same. Establish documentation and record keeping procedures, and in 2003 edition also same. Why they have emphasized the term validation in as a principle 3 and as a principle 6? Because we need to ensure scientifically justified critical limits or justified HACCP plan and verification procedures to produce safe food for the human consumption. To validate the critical limits for control measures when deviation occurs from critical control points, we have to refer regulatory requirements or scientific literatures, authoritative sources or third-party research studies in-depth analysis. We have to take the authoritative sources to establish validated critical limits. Same way, we have to validate our HACCP plan also. Principle number 6. We have to validate the HACCP plan also. Based on the scientific literature or guidance document from authoritative sources, we have to validate whether we have conducted hazard analysis properly or not, whether we have identified critical control points at particular step or not, whether we have established critical limits at particular CCP will effectively control or minimize or reduce the hazards to an acceptable level or not, critical limits properly controlling or to produce safe food or not. We have to validate whether the corrective action procedures are properly established, verification mechanism is working effectively, and the frequency of verification mechanism, what kind of corrective actions we were going to take, and monitoring system, what kind of monitoring system we are implementing. All these things we have to study, in-depth study based on availability of regulatory requirements or regulatory sources. You refer the regulatory sources, or you refer the literatures, scientific publications and authoritative sources. These are all you have to take before validate the HACCP plan. That's all about the friends. Thank you for watching.